Hello YouTube, this is Hunter Surge of the Brawler Cafe, bringing you another analysis video. This one is going to be a bit more talk about deck building, specifically around one very specific card, and that is Aurelus Trox. Aurelus Trox is an incredibly powerful Bakugan, and truthfully is the only Bakugan that manages to form a new archetype around itself that's really competitively viable out of Resurgence. Everything else is basically just further support for archetypes that already existed before Resurgence. He's really the only new one. So what is so good about this dude? So, Aurelus Trox base has 305 solid stat line for what evolves into a boss card. Like this is, we see this kind of stat line on a lot of Bakugan that turn into boss cards. Stuff like Pyrus Dragonoid and Chaos Nilius. Has a shield and fist, so it doesn't really particularly fit into any core type based deck. And in its base form, it has a mini ability of what it will turn into, which is when you play an action card on this gets plus 100B and plus 2 damage. And then when it turns into Aurelus Hyper Trox at only 2 costs, this is one of the best things about this Bakugan. The fact that it evolves for a very, very low cost. It gets natural Shadow Strike, and the on-play ability becomes plus 300B and plus 4 damage. This will lead into huge amounts of damage and very, very high B power, with Shadow Strike on top of it all to make it very difficult to deal with. So you're very much able to build around this Bakugan. So when doing that, obviously you want to build a deck that is able to spam out as many action cards onto Aurelus Trox core as possible. And ideally, you want to be able to reuse Aurelus Trox frequently enough that you can basically just rely on it to win you the game on its own. Because of course, a single blow from Aurelus Trox, even if it's enough to kill your opponent, probably won't, because you'll probably have to go through a couple flip cards before you manage to kill your opponent. And you'll need to maintain your hand size on top of that. So, for very obvious reasons, you're going to need Aurelus. Like, Aurelus just very automatically becomes the second faction for this deck. The Bakugan that you're going to want to pick in this case is just basically going to be Aurelus Fangzor. It's the highest base B power in Aurelus, has an evolution that draws you 3 cards, just gives you basically everything you want out of an Aurelus partner. So the big reasons we want Aurelus, of course, these should be fairly obvious. For one, it has, of the reroll cards, Aurelus has 2 1 costs, which are very, very good. It also gives you Shun for draw power, which combos with those reroll cards. And Flow obviously combos very well with Aurelus Trox, because it's about playing a bunch of cards. So stuff like Tides, Greater Water Boost, stuff like that is fantastic for this Bakugan. Even stuff like Inspire can be pretty solid. Because, you know, 1 cost, the plus 1 damage means it targets Trox to proc its ability, and it rephases itself in your hand. I don't think there's space for Inspire in basically any build of Aurelus Trox, but it is a card to keep in mind if, say, you don't have access to all of the stuff that I'm going to talk about. And then the two of the biggest things about Aurelus for Aurelus Trox, beyond Shun, Kazami, and the rerolls, those are all very, very big deals. But it also gives you access to Hurricane Winds and Bubble Net. Both of these are very good. Bubble Net, while boosting you for a decent amount of B, like the amount you expect for 2 costs is plus 400, and Bubble Net gives you plus 300. And it will close up Aurelus Trox as well at the end of that battle. So once you've won that battle with Aurelus Trox, you will then be able to use him again in the next battle, even if that battle was not a team attack. Then there's Hurricane Winds. Hurricane Winds is a card that received a lot of hype for being able to play 4 costs early, but in practice it just ends up being a 0 cost most of the time, while being online much later than actual 0 cost. So I'm not a very big fan of the card. However, in this deck, it is amazing because we want every 0 cost we can get, and Hurricane Winds is effectively the most efficient 0 cost big air quotes right now, in the game. Gives you that plus 300, which goes up to plus 600, which is actually standard for a 3 cost, so it's already giving you that value. And the best part is, this is something that you won't do with Hurricane Winds in any other deck because it's very poor value, but in this deck, you can go things like, okay, Hurricane Winds into some other play. That's great. That's fantastic. It's really, really good for the deck. And lastly, Aurelus also gives us access to Wave Slash. Wave Slash is like the single highest B power boost on a single card in the game. Well, it's not the highest, there are some plus 1100s, but like it's the highest efficient one. It's the highest efficient one. And Wave Slash is great because when we're stuck unevolved or when we need to use one of our other Bakugan later in the game, Wave Slash is a great way to get us an easy victory. So yeah, that's great. And what else is there? Blinding Ink. This is another key piece from Aurelus. Like, Aurelus is just such a ridiculously versatile faction. And so the fact that it fits so perfectly into this deck in particular gives us so many strong tools. Blinding Ink is one of those. This allows us to deal with Myosyndeus in the early game, because like once we have Aurelus Trox going, we don't need to worry about Myosyndeus because we're going to be outstripping basically anything in our damage rating. So it's just not a threat. But early game, it helps you deal with that. Also helps you negate stuff like Wayne if your opponent is trying to negate your stuff, or a Super Fuel into some powerful play. That might include Wax to also try and destroy you. And like it's just a 2 cost that deals with any 3 costs or lower, and most actions that are going to be useful are 3 costs or lower. Just very good, very strong. Now, moving on from there, we need to of course select our third faction. Now, let's right away cross off Ventus. Ventus is terrible for this sort of deck. Beyond Ventus's quality right now not being great, Ventus's B power boosters are all like decrease the opponent, and that means it doesn't target Trox, which means it does not proc Trox's ability, so it's not something we want. As for Chaos, the Chaos does not really provide us that anything that Aurelus isn't already, and there are way better tools to be found in Pyrus and Darkus. So let's talk about those two. For Darkus, our Bakugan choice is just going to default to Darkus Hydros Ultra. I like the Darkus variant in particular because all 3 Bakugan on it spin shoot very, very easily. But Darkus Hydros Ultra is the natural choice to go to whenever you're running anything Darkus. So yeah, we go with that for Darkus Hydros Ultra, for Darkus variant. Darkus provides us with Dark Fortune, Pact of Darkness, and 0 cost in the form of Shade Blade. Those are the main things it provides. It doesn't provide us a whole lot. However, the things that it does provide us are quite significant. Pact is a big deal because neither Pyrus or Aurelus is able to provide us with a very good flip. Like there's no good keyword flips there. So, you know, we're basically stuck with an Outsider's flip or a core type flip otherwise. But Dark Fortune is a huge deal because this just bumps our count of Aurelus Hyper Trox up to 6. So this is the much more consistent version of the deck. Shade Blade is also nice because it's a 0 cost. And Garganoid's Gaze is also nice to have access to. It's always nice to be able to just go, okay, Dan doesn't exist, your Titan Drago is back down to 1,000. Stuff like that. It's always nice to have access to. So it's notable that Darkus does provide us with that. For the Pyrus variant, you have some options. Right now, what I'm testing with, due to the molds I have access to, is Pyrus Mantinoid Ultra. Basically, you just want something that has high B power. Don't worry about Evos, whatever. If you have access to Wave 5, I think the best Bakugan to go with is probably the Pyrus Nobilius Ultra. Though, the one thing here is you don't have access to that many Magic Shield and Flame Fist. You have the one from Aurelus Fangsaur, but that's about it. So you might not want to go with this, and you might want to instead go with Pyrus Titan Dragonoid from the Dragonoid Maximus. Because 703 stat line, very solid and provides more shields. But I think ideally you'll want to go with either Nobilius Ultra or Titan Dragonoid. Either one of those works very, very well. Pyrus has a lot higher potential. It's not as consistent. However, it's when it goes off way harder and way stronger than the darkest version. So the reason for this is, of course, we double our low-cost reroll cards. We get access to Quickfire at 0 cost and Super Fuel at 1 cost. And Super Fuel is, of course, very, very good. Super Fuel means we can potentially get Shun or Aurelus Hyper Trox out on turn 1. And obviously enables us to get off more cards onto our Trox to get it even bigger. So that's fantastic. And of course, we are activating Shun even more often. So we're doing a lot of shenanigans there. And lastly, there's only really one other thing. Most of the deck is still going to be Aquos regardless, because Aquos provides us most of the tools we want. The other tool that you would be bringing with Pyrus is Dan, since Dan basically acts as more Shuns. Now this is something I actually haven't tested yet. The build I had for the Pyrus variant did not run Dan because I didn't fit it in yet. I have ideas of how to fit it in, and I'm going to be testing that in the near future, so make sure to catch the streams for that. Those will be resuming the day that this video goes up, same day of the upload. So yeah, but we won't be testing that right away. But basically, Dan can act as additional Shuns. All of our rerolls allowing us to play extra cards from our deck, dig deeper, get that Trox on the field, and once it's live, play a lot more cards, get Trox a lot more big swole. So yeah, that is quite potent. Anger's also a really fantastic card, like low cost, 2 cost, like very similar principle to BubbleNet, but it also refills our hand when we're going on empty. We're getting close to being empty, so it's more ways to refuel ourselves, and it also procs our Trox. So it's great, fantastic, great card. The Pyrus variant, as I said, is going to be going off way harder. And if you want to see either of these builds in action, seeing them do the absolute shenanigans that they do, I recommend checking out the testing live streams I've done. I've tested both of these decks against the Momocon Fury deck that I am quite the skeptic on. So feel free to go check those live streams out, see exactly the shenanigans that this deck gets up to, because it is extremely potent. You can also, for Pirates, you can also carry Myosyndeus, of course, because Trox's damage is going to get up very, very, very high. But I found that I don't think there's much space for it. The other cards in your deck don't really accommodate it. So yeah, the Darkest variant is very consistent, but has a lower power ceiling and takes longer to get going. But the Pirates variant, while much less consistent, is also very, very potent and very hard to beat once it actually gets going. Both of these are lower combo decks. Like this archetype as a whole is in general a slower combo deck, so that means you're probably going to have a hard time with faster decks like Fury, Shields, and Fists. Decks like that are going to be pretty difficult to deal with. But regardless, that is going to be it. Sorry that this video took a month to come out. Sleep schedules dying in a glorious fire holds you up for a while, but things are coming back now, and look forward to more content in the future. The buyer's guide for Resurgence will be dropping on Friday, so look forward to that. And this is Hunter Surge signing off.